Welcome to the Farmer and the City Girl podcast. My name is Rob Shark. I'm a farmer from Illinois and the host of the Shark Farmer podcast.
And my name is Carrie Zilka. I am an IT professional living and working in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I am the hostess of the Hunt Fish Travel podcast. And normally we'd really like to start a conversation, but I think this episode is going to be a little different.
Yeah, very different. And I'm going to give you lots of props because when we did this podcast, it was going to be to bridge the gap between consumers and farmers. But I wanted to talk about how farmers were dealing with these wildfires. And I got a feeling that not a lot of people outside of ag are really aware of how devastating they were, and they are. So I hit you up on this, and I gotta say you just without hesitation, yeah, let's do this, let's get it done. We've got a couple people we're going to talk to. I have not given you much time, but you just automatically said this is important. Let's tell people about it.
Well, it's not like I didn't know what was going on. It's been on the news, and I've read articles since the wildfires started, 10, 12 days ago. But wasn't until you really, the news, they cover it just peripherally. They're not showing a lot of pictures of dead and bloated cows and devastation like that. But when you do a search for the wildfires, it's insane the amount of horror that is going on right now in those 4 states.
That's two, and we're going to talk to a couple people today that are also on Twitter that are also trying to help out on it. Denton Clark, who's helped fight some of the fires, and Sean Harmon, who among lots and lots of others are hauling hay down because obviously the cows now don't have anything to eat, that the grass is gone. And I'll let these guys speak for themselves, but this is a situation where the government is there, but it's not like it's the driving force in the relief effort. This is farmers helping farmers, people understanding what these ranchers have gone through, and are doing everything they can to help them out.
Yeah. Well, and the government can only do so much. We've got more than 2 million acres so far that the wildfire has decimated. We've got tens of thousands of cattle dead. We've got millions of dollars in damage and just a ridiculous amount of livestock that's been affected by this fire. The government can only do so much. So farmers and just people in general have really been stepping up to the plate to help out, which I think is wonderful.
I tell you, it's really tugged at me when I see some of this stuff. And man, you see those videos of like the convoys of trucks going down there with hay, and it's like, America, that's awesome. So
yeah.
I hope that maybe by at least talking to these two, that we can show, the average consumer, the person that is going to be buying hamburger at Walmart, maybe a little bit of the story of what's gone on, what they've struggled with, and how, as America as a community, is kind of pulled together to try to help these guys out a little bit.
Yeah, because you can watch. So like when something like Hurricane Katrina or I don't know, any of these big storms, I living in a city can relate, because what would happen if Lake Michigan came up and flooded out Milwaukee or whatever? It's different than something like this because I can relate to somebody who's had a house fire or their whole house is damaged. I have a harder time relating that to people whose literally their cows are burning up. I mean, some of the pictures that I've seen. So I think this episode is pretty important to just bridge that gap a little bit and just shed some light on how farmers really are helping each other. It's easy for me to donate $20 to the Red Cross or whatever, or, to buy 5 cases of water to send down to Louisiana. It's easy for me. But some of these guys, they're driving 24 hours. They're hauling hay for, just something as simple as hay, just some feed for cattle and for other livestock that have been affected. Because it's not just cows. These people their whole farms are devastated and destroyed by fires. And anyone who's lived through a house fire knows how awful that is. But can you imagine having your entire house, all of your pets, all of your livestock, your livelihood, your barns, everything gone, black, burned to the ground?
Yeah, it's hard to explain too. And I know, hey, farmers, ranchers like to tell their stories and that, but this one here is like a perfect example of how, okay, I've lost my pasture. Even though if I have insurance, okay, it is what it is. Well, that's not the mindset of a person that raises livestock. To see it suffering, to see it go hungry it's like torture for these ranchers. So there's a whole mental part of it that you and I will never understand, that these guys are going through right now. Because, yeah, it's, even if you lost the house, I mean, but their concern right now is, I don't want my livestock sitting there starving to death and suffering. So it's a race to get them fed, and that's the problem. There's nothing left.
I don't think that city folk wouldn't have the same sort of compassion. I think that it's harder for us to know even what to do. Like, how can I help? I don't have hay. I don't have round bales to send to you. Of course I don't want to see these animals starving. Any human being does not want to see anything like a cow starve to death because there's nothing for them to eat. But I don't know how someone who's not involved in the agricultural industry would even have an idea of where to begin to even send some relief.
Yeah, and it's not the easiest to find, because I've looked at it a little bit. Hopefully by the time we post this, we'll have some links. But yeah, we're gonna. There's a couple. One of my friends, Sean Harmon, along with a ton of other people, is driving his own semi down there, paying his own fuel with hay that someone else donated. So I hit him up last night and I said, "Hey, did you meet anybody along the way?" And he said, "Well, yeah, Denton Clark, who has kind of helped with fighting some of the fires." And actually, we're going to talk to him, and it's going to be interesting to hear his take.
For the listeners who don't even know how and when the fires even started, so far, it's mainly affecting Oklahoma, Colorado, Kansas, and Texas. It started on March 6th, and on the day that we're recording this is March 19th. So that just gives you an idea of how long they've been fighting these fires and how obviously some relief efforts. And we will put in the show notes of thefarmerandthecitygirl.com/EP011. We'll put in some links of where you can donate money and some contact information for some of the relief efforts out there. And we would like to introduce the listeners to Denton Clark, who is a volunteer. He has been working tirelessly to help with the relief efforts, boots on the ground, helping fight this fire. Denton, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us to talk about this horrible, horrible event.
Well, it's no problem at all. I don't know if I'm working very tirelessly, not as hard as those guys that are still down there, but yeah, it's been quite the deal, that's for sure.
I can imagine. How did you even hear about everything? How did you get involved?
Well, Kansas is knit. When something like that kind of goes bad, like all the volunteer fire departments for several miles around, and I say several, I mean like 80 or 90 miles around, will come in and fight a big deal like that. And I know people from down in that area pretty well, and I knew it was a mess, and I went down there and just to see what I could do. And it's we're a pretty close-knit community in western Kansas. There's just not very many of us, so we all know each other.
You say 70 to 80 miles. I mean, that seems like an awful long distance to go help fight a fire.
It's quite a ways. The third day that the fire was going pretty good, we had winds sustained at 60 miles an hour all day, and there was actually a tanker truck there from Montrose, Colorado, which is about 8 hours away. And that was the craziest one that I had seen. But when it was all said and done, I think there was departments from half of the state there at one point. it was the biggest event as far as that goes I've ever seen.
Tell us how exactly one fights a wildfire of this magnitude, because it's
You
the
don't?
pictures. It's something right out of the movies. Seriously.
Well, I've told quite a few people this, and I'm sticking by it, that when I imagine what hell looks like, that's exactly what pops into my mind. Everything's on fire. The trees are all on fire. What few trees we have out here in western Kansas. The bridges, some of the bridges we were driving over that are still wooden bridges, they were on fire. And the old train trestle bridges, they were all on fire. It was crazy. And we really didn't try and fight it. We tried to contain it and keep people's houses from burning down. And that was about all we did.
Are you like digging ditches or fire breaks or?
Well, we weren't. A lot of the farmers down in that area were running their discs and their tractors out in front, and they really weren't trying to fight it. They were just trying to keep their houses from catching on fire. And the town of Ashland, where Sean went to, actually, it would have burned if it wasn't for about 8 farmers and tractors and discs. It would have burned that town of 12 or 1,300 down.
Wow.
So is this mainly pasture ground that was on fire?
Yeah, that's a lot of short grass rangeland down there. It's all pasture land. There's a few wheat fields here and there, but they're pretty few and far between down there anyway.
Okay, so take us through, like, when you got there, what are you jumping into? I mean, what did it look like when you got there and they're putting you to work?
I didn't go down there during the day very much. I went down there for relief at night. And it's pretty noticeable when you get about 70 miles away, I would say, and there's just this deep red glow in the west and in the southwest, kind of like what you would see in a sunset, like right before it gets pretty dark. There's just this deep red glow. And when you start getting closer, I mean, I think I could see the tips of flames 15 miles away. You get up on tops of the hills and you can see the flames from about 15 miles out. That was the thing that struck me the most, that this is a big deal. It's hard for me to say, because when you get down to something like that, you kind of just react. You really don't have a lot of time to think. You've got guys pointing you in every which direction that you need to go, and you really don't spend a lot of time thinking. You just react. So that's kind of a hard thing to imagine, but that's how crazy it was. And it was just like that last year for the Anderson Creek wildfire, which wasn't near as big as this one, but it was still a big one.
That brings up a good point, because this is not the first time you guys have had huge, crazy wildfires. Wasn't it 6-7 years ago that you had a similar event?
Last year.
It was just last year?
It was exactly a year ago. In fact, this fire was about 2 weeks ahead of the one that happened. Actually, the one that happened, the Anderson Creek wildfire, was to the southeast of me and my farm, and this one was to the southwest. And and both fires got within 10 miles of my family's farm both years. So we've had 2 pretty dry beginnings of the end of winter and into the beginning of spring. We've had 2 really dry years, and it's just been a tinderbox each year.
What's the attitude of people there? I mean, what's their demeanor? How is this affecting those communities?
It's kind of a mixed bag. It depends a lot on what guys lost. We know, my family and I are really good friends with some people that lost everything. They lost their cow herd. I think they had 500 or 600 head. They lost all of them. It burnt their house to the ground. I mean, there was nothing left. Burnt up all of their fences. It burned up all their pasture. It's just, for that to happen, they're sad, but they're willing to go to work and get things cleaned up and maybe try and start over, but they're going to have to get cleaned up first to see where they are. But you get around some of the other producers down there, and some of them are they're ready to get after it and go to work and get things fixed up and get back to going. And then there's just some other guys that they don't know what to do next. And I can completely understand both sides.
Sure. Just the sheer weight of everything could just knock you right to your knees.
Yeah. Some of those guys probably lost 400 or 500 miles of fence. And at $10,000 a mile, I mean, the government will kick in a little bit, but not much. At $10,000 a mile, just the fence part of it, in my mind, is something that is just a number that would be overwhelming, much less losing all of your cattle or at least part of them. Sure. And some of these guys have been working on cow herds for years, decades. And that's pretty much all gone down the tubes now.
Yeah. What do you tell people? Say somebody from Chicago, Illinois reaches out to you and says, I want to help. What do you tell them? What can they do to help?
Well, I tell them that I'm not really a good guy to talk to. I'm just a pawn in the game. And then I do my best to try and find, there's some really good people down in Ashland right now and down in Oklahoma and Texas that are organizing a lot of what's going on, the relief effort, the hay delivery, the guys are donating fence and fence posts. And I try and find numbers for those people so they can contact them. That way it's more organized and I'm not just the middleman.
Yeah.
That would be, and the Kansas Department of Emergency Management actually has put out a list of people to contact. I'm not sure where that list is currently. They posted it on their Twitter feed here not terribly too long ago, but that's a really good resource to go to figure out relief effort stuff.
We'll find it and we'll put it in the show notes so that if anybody does want to donate or help, they can.
Yeah, and I know everybody appreciates everything that's going on. That's one thing that has really resonated with me is everybody is pitched in. I mean, Sean came down from Iowa, and there's been guys from Minnesota and everywhere you could possibly think of that has some extra hay. They have shown up and donated a little bit. And there was some fence posts donated from a group in Australia.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's what's really resonating with me is how the farming community, no matter the distance, has been able to pull together and kind of help each other out. And I know everybody down there is overwhelmed with it all, and they may not say it right off the bat, but I know they all very greatly appreciate it.
Well, yeah, they probably haven't had time to catch their breath. But Denton, you and I have followed each other on Twitter for a while. I can't say we really know each other, but I was surprised.
Yeah.
I gone through your Twitter feed. You're volunteering your time to go down there. I don't see any pictures of that. I mean, I don't see where you're kind of like doing it for anybody else. You're volunteering your time. What is driving you to go down there and help?
Well, it's just I live 10 miles from Greensburg, Kansas, which got wiped off the map by an EF5 tornado in 2007. And everybody in Kansas come and helped. At some point, somebody came in and helped. They didn't ask for a dime. They didn't ask for anything. They just come and helped everybody get cleaned up. And I think that's really important, to just go down there and you just ask somebody, what can I do? And they'll point you in a direction and then you do what you're supposed to do and you go home. It's just, I know a lot of people down there too, and I just want to do as much as I can to help because, I would hope if something bad would happen to me that I would get some help from outside. Something this scale is just ridiculous. I don't know how I would react.
What are some of the more shocking moments that you experience when you're down there helping?
Define shocking.
Well,
it's all shocking from one end to the next.
Well, some things that have stood out to you.
The dead cows. And the burnt cows. And that's something that they're not even my cows, and it tears me up. It's sad. It's so sad. And, you know, the ranchers down there are having to go out and put down cows by the hundreds. And that's the thing that has probably sat with me the most, is the loss of cows. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, to be quite honest.
Seeing some of the photos online, I cannot imagine. Like, some of them are very graphic. These poor cows standing there covered in soot with these burn patches all over, and you just envision them like in the pasture. They don't know there's nowhere to go. They're literally just standing there and burning to death. That would haunt me.
It's, you know, and then what got me was when I was on the back of a brush truck, kind of down there, and we weren't really in the middle of it. We were kind of out on the outer edges. Then it flared up, and the calves couldn't run fast enough. They couldn't get out of the way fast enough, and they would be bawling inside. Like, they would be bawling because, you know, they're in fire, and the mothers would turn around and go back and go get them, or go try to get them.
Ugh, it's awful.
Not everybody in this audience is in agriculture, so it might be a little hard for some of those people that have never raised livestock to understand that. I mean, go through kind of the mindset of what it's like to invest your time and, like you said, years building up this herd, and then to have something like this happen.
I honestly, I can't even begin to imagine what it's like. We grow crops up on our farm, and we haven't ran cows in quite a while, and all the work that those guys have put in, and they've lost most of it, if not all of it. I'm not even going to begin to try and put myself in their shoes. It's just decades and decades of backbreaking hard work, taking care of their cows and making sure the genetics are all right. And then this happens. And I honestly can't even try to put myself in their shoes. It'd be devastating.
Yeah, that's a good point, because like, as soon as you said that, and I'm like, well, anyone who has a pet or an animal that they love, they've had for 10 years or whatever, if there's a house fire and you're hearing that dog or that cat screaming upstairs in the fire, anybody can relate to that. However, the difference is that, like you said, like, I haven't put decades and decades and decades into, well, unless I'm a dog breeder or something like that, into an animal, you know, like you said, like, with genetics, and there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of work and effort, because it's not just pets. These are not just your pets. These are your livelihood.
Yeah. And it's, I really couldn't begin to put myself in their shoes. And then and then seeing the faces of some of these ranchers that have to put down their cows, that, you know, they're so far gone that they're just miserable, and there's no life left, really. So they're having to go out and shoot all of these cows, and seeing the faces of these ranchers doing that after a full day of shooting cows to try and put them down and get them out of their misery. It's just, words can't begin to describe it.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
These people love their job, and they love what they do, and they love raising cows and everything so much. And then they have to do something like that. I don't know how they're doing it, to be quite honest.
You're explaining this to my kids this morning, what I was going to talk about. And they're like, well, how can't you just move away from a fire? And talk a little bit about it. You know, every farmer has kind of burned a waterway off and whatever, and it's the wind kicks up and you realize what it can do. But explain a little bit of how fast and how powerful these fires are.
Well, at the Anderson Creek fire last year and this one, we were driving along beside the fire in a brush truck to try and get out in front of it and then get to somebody's house. And we're driving along at 55, 60 miles an hour to try and get out in front, and the fire is passing us. It's going faster than we can, because it'll be burning in a line, and the wind will get to rolling it. It'll look like a tornado or something, and it'll roll and it'll jump out 100 yards, and then it'll jump out 100 yards, and it will actually pass a vehicle going 60 miles an hour down the road. Also, if fires have got enough intensity and enough heat, they generate their own wind. They pull enough air in that then they get even more intense. And the flames are higher than most 4-story buildings. And it's just insane. Cornstalk fires are a really good way to describe it. It's just intense, and it goes really fast. And the only difference is you've got thousands upon thousands of acres to burn rather than a couple hundred.
Around here, like you said, we have cornstalks fire. Rarely do they ever jump a road, but I'm gathering down there that the roads don't stop them.
No. They would jump the road, and it's like I say effortless. It was almost effortless. You'd get up to the road and it wouldn't even pause. It'd just blow over the road and keep right on going. Sometimes we try and set up some defenses along roads, but when it gets to a certain point, we have to bail out and let it go on, because it'll jump the road and keep right on going, and it won't even know you were there. And the relative humidity and the heat and the wind was really not in our favor at all.
So basically, what I'm hearing is you don't really try to stop a wildfire of this magnitude. You just try to minimize the damage. You try and mitigate as much as you can, and until the wind and everything cooperates better, you really don't try and fight it at all. You just try and let it go and keep people's houses from burning is all.
Denton, what else do you want people to know about what you've been doing and how this has affected the area? What do you want to leave people with?
I want to tell everybody thank you for what they're doing, for whatever anybody's doing. I want to say thank you for everybody in Kansas and the Oklahoma Panhandle and the Texas Panhandle. I just want to say thank you. I would say do what you can and donate what you can, and if it's time, that's fine too. But really, I just want to say thank you, because I don't think we can express our gratitude enough with just how much everybody in the agriculture community across the entire United States has pitched in to help.
It's funny that you were wanting to thank people when, honestly, I mean, we're sitting here wanting to thank you. You're volunteering. You're giving some reprieve there. And I don't know what to say. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I'm not doing as much as I think I could, but I've got my own family farm to run at home, and I say run, but yeah, and I'm not as big a volunteer as there was volunteer firefighters that spent days, 6 or 7 days down there just working their fingers to the bone, and I was only a little piece of it. I don't really think I could claim much credit here. I helped out when I could, and then I let them do their job. But the volunteer firefighters were amazing. They did fantastic. And all of the people that are pitching in after the wildfire to help and donate hay and fence posts and fence and on, the list is endless. I just, for Southwest Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas, I just want to say thank you.
Well, Denton, thank you again for taking a few minutes to talk to us and to explain your experience. For the listeners, they can find you on Twitter at DentonClark17. And, from somebody who lives in Milwaukee who is not able to go and help in person, I just want to say thank you for going.
Well, you are helping. You're doing this right here, and getting the word out even more than it already has, and you're definitely helping. So don't worry about it, really.
Well, thank you very much, Denton.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Isn't it something that he is like just wanting to be all thankful to everybody else, and just like it's like he doesn't even realize, what he's doing, or the lengths that he's going to help these people. It's just, kind of shows the kind of guy he is, I guess.
Absolutely. And probably a really good example of the agricultural community who is willing to drop everything and go help their neighbor out, even if their neighbor is 2,000 miles away.
Yeah, man, it sounds like hell, doesn't it? The way he described that fire just rolling past the truck, and wow.
It's horrible. Yeah. I can't even imagine.
Well, now we're going to talk to Sean Harmon, a guy that I've interviewed on the Shark Farmer podcast before. He's from Iowa. He's a grain farmer, but yet he is taking his own semi with his own money and his own time and hauling hay down there, and just to help out with the relief. So I saw that on his Twitter, and of course I hit him up, and we're going to talk to him right now. So, Sean, are you there?
I'm here.
And okay.
Going south on Interstate 35.
And what state is that?
Missouri.
So you are actually in the truck, and what are you hauling?
Taking another load of hay bales down to Ashland Camp.
Oh, so you're heading south right now?
Yep, that's the second trip. I got home last night about midnight. They loaded the trailer this morning, but I'm headed back down.
Wow. So tell the listeners exactly what it is that you're doing.
Friday afternoon, someone approached me. They were looking for a truck and a trailer to get hay bales down to the Wildfires in Kansas. So I volunteered. Went down there, and once I saw it, and they lost everything. So on the way home yesterday, someone else sent me a message, said they had more hay to go down there. And so here I am with load number 2 going back down.
So are these people that are just donating the hay but don't have a way to get it down there?
Correct, yep. There are farmers in eastern Iowa that had the hay but had no way to get it down there. And I didn't have any hay, but I had trucks sitting in the driveway, so jumped in it. Where are we headed? But the pictures you see on the computer, Facebook, and Twitter, they look horrible, but it doesn't even do it justice how bad it really is down there. You drive down the road, everything is burnt down to the ground. Machine pens full of equipment, pickups, telephone poles, and everything is it's gone.
Well, I mean, it's hard to even kind of imagine what you're saying. So, I mean, when you're driving along, you look out to the left, you look out to the right, and all you're seeing is black?
It's black. There's a wheat field here and there, green wheat that the fire went around. But other than that, everything is completely black down there. The road signs are melted off. I mean, it's almost creepy looking how burnt things are.
What drove you to do this? I mean, what's the inspiration? Why?
To be honest, it was out of boredom, a thrill there. I was bored Friday, and someone called me, and I was like, well, I had nothing to do. I'll do it. I want to go see what it's really like down there, and if I can help somebody. That's great. But then when I got down there yesterday and saw how bad it was, I mean, that really opened my eyes to how tough things are for those guys. They got all the cattle that are left alive. They have no feed. All the pastures are gone. All their hay bales burned up. So everything that they're feeding right now is brought into them.
So now, will this create like a hay shortage for 2017, do you think?
I'm not a hay person, so I don't know.
Well, no, I guess I'm thinking like, so I'm assuming, well, because like I have a horse, so we buy X amount of bales that has to last us through the summer and into the winter until we buy the next round. But when we have really dry summers or we have hay shortages, that's a real problem. So I guess I'm wondering, so you're taking hay out of your inventory, will that create a problem for you eventually, say in August, when you're like, oh wow, now I'm X amount of bales short for my livestock?
Both farmers that we loaded at, it was excess hay that they had too much of that they stockpiled, and so they were giving up their excess hay. So
Okay.
I don't think it's going to create a shortage for them. It's just they had excess, so they decided to donate it.
That's excellent.
So that's where we got it from. So
That's great.
But you're right, Carrie. I gotta imagine it's going to strengthen the hay market for sure. Because you're replacing what, about 2 million acres of grassland? I mean, that's going to be a ton of hay.
I think it was like 640,000 acres, what I heard down there, that the grass fence burned up. So
In Kansas, yeah.
you know,
Yep. Yeah, it's awful. It's an incredible amount of just land.
when you start getting more towards the western part of Kansas, the amount of semis and pickups, everybody hauling supplies, just it opens your eyes. And coming home yesterday, I got thinking, there wasn't a lot of news or national news on, because I saw a little thing, the night it happened. Other than social media, I haven't heard anything about it. It kind of made me think, I compared it to Hurricane Katrina. When those people, when everything went to hell for them, they just sat there complaining until the government stepped in and helped them. It's been really awesome seeing when a fellow farmer or rancher then needs what an American farmer will step up and do, without even being asked. I headed down there. I didn't even know where I was going, and they were so grateful to get what we had. So that was awesome.
Did you literally just head south?
Yep. Well, I kind of knew where I was going, but we just headed towards the town, and about an hour before we unloaded, I got my contact information of the farm we were going to. And that's how it worked.
And you took your daughter with you.
Yep, Lily went down with me, and the whole way down, she didn't understand quite what we were doing. She didn't understand, why I wasn't getting paid to do it. And when we got down there, driving around and seeing everything burned up on the way home last night, she goes, Dad, this was way better than going snowboard. She's like, we help people. And that just, it was like someone whacked at me, with a baseball bat. It's just kind of one of those aha moments, that I think I did something good.
It's odd not being able to make fun of you for being mean, actually.
I'm still the same jackass I was the other day.
Yeah, but now people see your true colors.
Yeah. But no, we're not in the field. I had Chuck fit, so here we are, doing what I can to help those in need, I guess. So I'm happy as can be to do it.
You're not alone either, right?
No, Nick Taylor's with me today, so
okay.
We're taking 2 loads of hay down today. But once you get down about Wichita, it's just all the hay trucks start kind of coming together. Those videos you see on Facebook of just hay truck after hay truck. A lot of fencing supplies now. Yesterday I saw going down and pick up trailer loads of posts and stuff like that.
So Carrie sent me an email of some links of people that were helping, and one was that Mike Berto. He had bought like $3,000 worth of milk replacement, And I go, wait a minute, wasn't Sean just at his place? Is that the place you got the hay too?
It was his neighbor that donated the hay, but Mike helped load it. So.
Do you know anybody down there?
Nope. I met a Twitter follower down there yesterday along the side of the highway. But other than that, I know no one that farms down in that area.
Have you been able to shield your daughter from some of the more horrific sights, like the dead cows and stuff, or has she been exposed to all that too?
We saw, I told her that, animals that died, and we only saw a couple yesterday that they hadn't got cleaned up yet. She understood what happened. She understood the severity of it. It didn't, the whole deal was emotional, but the livestock, the dead livestock, didn't seem to affect her. She'll have a story to tell when she goes back to school, what they did on spring break. She got to go down there and see that. So.
That's pretty amazing. Does she go to school with a lot of other farm kids, or is it more in the city?
No, I think there's 1,100 kids in first grade in our school system, and there's, I don't know, out of the whole school district, there might be 6 kids from a farm. Right.
So she'll actually be like almost like an ambassador, bridging that gap between farmers and city folk, because she'll be able to tell from a uniquely childlike perspective what she did on spring break and why it was important. And hopefully she'll make the impression on those kids that aren't exposed to the farms.
I hope so. She wanted the picture to take with her, this week, but I didn't get them printed out for her yet. She was really devastated that she didn't get to come back with me today. So, I figured after riding, 24 hours in a truck, she'd had enough of it. But this morning she was up and ready to go right with me again, but I didn't know, I wouldn't make it back in time for school tomorrow. So.
Yeah. Did you get any grief for taking her along into such a dangerous environment?
No.
Good.
I don't know. Maybe people judge me, but I don't care.
I mean, what's the thought process of taking her down there?
Well, we were supposed to go snowboard, but there Friday we were trying to decide what to do. The last few days of spring break. I got 2 daughters, and I had neither of them wanted to ride along. Hoping they both would say yes. But the one wanted to stay home, and Lily wanted to go with me. And I just kind of wanted her to, see how bad it was and how people help people for their time of need, I guess.
So she's probably thinking quite a bit of Dad right now.
I hope so, yeah. Yeah, she was all worried. She helped me, roll up all the straps yesterday when we unloaded. I mean, we were both covered in ash, when we got back in the truck. It smelled like a fire, all day yesterday. And she was all worried who was going to help to roll up the straps today down there. If I don't do anything else, it's good, her seeing that, us helping those people, I think that was well worth it. So.
Tell me about the farm you went to down there.
So where we delivered yesterday, the guy was right on the north side of, probably about 4 miles into where the fire stopped. And we drove down a dirt road for probably 2 miles back into some rangeland. And he had probably 15, 20 acre kind of fence out there where he stored all of the hay bales. Everything is black. You can see where all the hay bales are burned up, and just row after row, piles of ashes pulled in there. And right where we were unloaded, there must have been a building standing there before the fire, because I was looking down and there were nails and boards all over underneath the ash that we were parked on. So he said he had about 10 miles of fence to tear just on his property alone.
Well, and we learned by talking to Denton before you that that's what $10,000 a mile too. So I mean that's not an insignificant cost.
Yeah. But the worst part is they still got they lost quite a few cattle, but there's still a lot of cattle roaming around, and they're just kind of the fence that's there. The cattle must know that the fence was a fence there because there's nothing really keeping them in a lot of those fields. All the wood posts are all burned up, and the barbed wire is broken, and every third or fourth post got hot stuff that has snapped to it. It's really a sad situation down there. It surprises me that not more on the news, the news than what there is. I guess at first when I heard about it, everyone saying it's not on the news, it's not on the news. I was like, well, I heard of the first night it was on the news. Then you get down there, and it's a lot worse than what it looks like in the pictures, on social media. It kind of, it's all, it's hard to look at, knowing that there's guys that lost everything. There's foundations of houses, machine sheds, and nothing but the pen left with machinery in the shed that's all burned up. In a matter of a few minutes, it was all gone.
Yeah, I was interested in that too because social media was screaming. Ag community was screaming that it's not being covered. You didn't know. Every tragedy is local, but the more you look into this, the more you talk to people that have been down there and experienced it, it's of a magnitude that I know I definitely did not understand.
Agreed.
Well, that's the way. That's why I kind of wanted to go down there and see it, and see if it was really as bad as social media was making out to be. And it's all on the inside. So it really takes your breath away when you see what was there and what's left standing. There's nothing left.
I can't even imagine.
But the great part is watching everyone donate their time and materials. No questions asked. They just showed up to help. What makes me really proud to be part of this community. So.
Yeah, and again, we'll have in the show notes some links to some places that people can donate, or if they want to get involved with the relief effort, we'll have that in the show notes and on the website, thefarmerandthecitygirl.com/EP011.
Yeah, Sean, we appreciate what you're doing. I mean, it's got to feel good to be doing, and I know you're helping people by doing it. So, thank you for letting us talk to you as you're driving down the road.
Well, hopefully I didn't ramble on too much.
No. And if people want to see the photos that you posted on Twitter, your handle is @Harmon03. You've got some really, really cool pictures, and the one of your daughter crashed out is adorable.
She was, I thought she slept most of the night last night, it was 8 o'clock this morning, she was raring to go again, and so I figured she was burned out, but I don't know, it's nice taking her along because it keeps me entertained, So I listened to more Disney music and troll movie music yesterday than I think I needed to, but it was still fun.
Well, awesome. Sean, thank you very much.
Yep. So talk to you later.
All
okay, thank you.
Bye. Yeah, it's good to hear Sean. Like I said, he's a personal friend, and I'm really proud of what he's doing. But, I mean, that's just one of a whole bunch of other stories going on, and you actually had found a few yourself.
There are, and I'm sure there are many, many unspoken Good Samaritan deeds going on, but there were just a couple that stood out to me that jumped out in Illinois. And I mean, there's hate efforts from all over the country. South Dakota, like Denton said, just hate from all over the country coming in. The Cass Morgan Farm Bureau Young Leaders Committee, they have collected enough hay and because it's not just hay, it's livestock supplies, it's all sorts of things to fill at least 8 tractor trailers. And they're going to send it down March 25th. It's going to be on its way bound for Ashland, Kansas. An Iowa, Washington resident, like you said, Mike Berto and his friends bought, they brought in instant calf milk replacer. You wouldn't think of that. It costs nearly $3,000. Who just buys $3,000 worth of supplies? I mean, hello, sainthood. I read one story. It was hilarious. This woman said that a trucker got a flat tire on his way to deliver hay to Kansas, and the repairman who came to fix his flat gave him a roll of $100 bills to give to people affected by the fires. I mean,
wow. The
generosity coming out of people, just random people. The farmers are going above and beyond. I don't know. It gives me the warm and fuzzies, even though it's a terrible, terrible disaster.
Yeah.
It really makes me feel good that people are coming together from all walks of life to help.
Like I said before, you were just automatically, yeah, let's do this thing. So I thank you too.
I can't even imagine the devastation. Any natural disaster, it's unfortunate that it takes a natural disaster for us all to come together and say, what can I do? Even a small part, even if it's just donating $2 or whatever it is. But it just makes me feel good that so many people are coming together. And I do wish the news would cover it more. We did see it on the news, and I did read several articles in the last 2 weeks about it. But it's not, and maybe it's because it's not as many people affected as it would be if you had, a huge fire in Chicago where there's millions of people affected. I don't know if that has something to do with it. The more people on social media who help get the word out, the better.
Agreed. Yes. And we will try to get some stuff up on our show notes of where people can donate. And it's kind of, this one kind of makes you, I don't know, like you said, it just kind of reflects and makes you feel good and bad at the same time.
It does. And for both farmers and non-farmers, we got permission to post some photos on the website along with those links. So if you get a chance and you want to see what's actually going on, well, you can just Google wildfires and just click images and they come up. So thank you to everyone. Thank you so much to everyone who's taken hay and farming supplies down there from someone who lives in the city. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. And to the people affected by the fires, we hear you. And we know you're struggling right now, and we are going to try to help any way we can.